What are the 5 elements of a business plan? We're going to go through and talk about it. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. So when it comes to creating a business plan, I've done hundreds of these, and I've advised people hundreds all over the world. I actually wrote a book, best-selling book on how to do that. But the way I look at it is not necessarily a traditional way that most people look at business plans. I look at business plans as guide maps, as living documents that help us figure out, are we going to be successful with the business? And I started my first of 16 companies when I was at 19, so I know what I'm talking about with this. The 5 primary steps that we're going to go through each one are: number 1, clarifying your motivations and what success looks like for you. Why are you doing this? How can you then make sure that you're integrating this business into your life? Not the other way around, making your life fit around your business. When you do this, and it's something that you genuinely love with your heart, you're going to do a better job and you'll actually make more money. Now, the second thing is, how do we research and vet the ideal product or service for you? What makes you unique? How do we do that? Who can we help with that? The third thing, thinking about how can we create a team of advisors, interviewing those people and deciding who it is we want to work with. There's ways to do this. It shouldn't cost you hardly any money at all. The fourth thing is making sure then that we implement all of those things to actually create the business. And then lastly, how do you make a plan for the first 6 months so that you can ruthlessly but compassionately hold yourself accountable so that you drive success? All right, so let's hit each one of these one at a time. First, when it comes to clarifying your motivations, there's different tools, and you can actually go to our website, aspiringsolopreneur.com, that'll help you, and they're free, but there's one called the balance wheel that'll help you look at what does amazing look like for your life. Why this is important is it's important for you guys to transition from a reactive state to a proactive state. How can you really, really define where you want to be? Most people are machines when they really clearly define where they want to go, and it's just a matter of then of mechanics of figuring out how do we get there. But you need to start with that end in mind. What does amazing look like on a holistic level for your relationships, for your health, for your business, and for the revenue you want to make? I promise you, when you do this well, you'll actually make more money. Now, the second thing then is going to research and vet your business. How do we do this? Well, you may already be an expert in a certain area, and you may have things and different attributes of the events and stuff you like doing. Is there a way that we can integrate those? But the reality is that most people are like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure how, or I don't know who to talk to, or I think this idea is interesting. And again, we talk about this in the book and on the online courses that we offer at Aspiring Solopreneur. But this is where we just start calling and talking to people. The most amazing thing that an entrepreneur can hear is their own voice. So when somebody says, hey, I'm looking at doing this business, I would love to get any insights or feedback you may be willing to give me. Now, some people might be uncomfortable with that. And if you're doing it in a regional area, that's competitors. Not always though. You may be very surprised, and you may actually come up with contracts where you can subcontract for people. But if that's the case, it's a big world. Start calling people in other places and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm considering doing that. And see what they think and see where it starts, and start with that. It's going to help you start to refine what makes your product unique. And we talk about this in other videos on this channel, but please figure out how you can be unique so that it's the kind of thing, I'm going to do this for everybody. Well, as an example, in the book, one of my favorite ones is an accountant. There's an accountant in Nebraska, sits right on Interstate 80, and it says trucker accountant. Well, that's a very unique niche. But anybody, he's got hundreds of truckers driving by every day with a phone number right underneath it. They can call. He knows that industry better than anybody. It creates a relationship. He has a very special, unique niche. How can you look for your own variation of your own niche? Now, the third thing is, how do we create a team of advisors? And I invest a lot of time and energy with this. This is something where how can you find people that share your values, that believe in you, you believe in them, and are experts in what they do. Small business experts usually starts with a small business accountant. Now most accountants, attorneys, insurance people, even bankers are going to give you up to an hour of their time to explore, are we a fit? And they'll help give you advice right off the bat. And you can tell quickly, are these people a good fit for me or not? And so when you're talking about building your team of advisors, I usually suggest you start with an accountant, but an expert in small business. And if you can find an expert who happens to be in the same industry, my accountant has people on her staff. There's one guy I talked with yesterday who is an expert in construction for small businesses. So he understands that space, but he also can make recommendations to attorneys. He can make recommendations to insurance people. He's going to have ideas around different types of compliance things. So he's already done a lot of the work, the heavy lifting for those individuals, and it makes it to where there's not missing any blind spots. Now, the next thing then is usually an attorney. Attorneys are great for helping build structure for businesses, the organizations, potentially contracts, things like that. They'll help advise on what's the right structure. Do I do a LLC, a subchapter S corporation, a C corp? Rarely. Or is it a sole proprietorship? What's the best way to do this? Now, you're also going to roll into an insurance agent. Insurance agent's going to help you identify and define what are things I absolutely positively have to be legal. What are things I probably should have just to cover my ass? And then third, what are the big things that it'd be really nice to have? Help define those, and then you can start figuring out what the level of risk is, what is your personal risk tolerance, and how much is it going to cost, how does that fit? Now remember, you haven't spent any money yet. You haven't done any of those things. You've clarified what are your motivations and how do you build the business to fit your life. You've researched and started to get a good idea of what your product is, and maybe even had some people say, yeah, you know what? You start doing that, I'd love to work with you. You've built that team of advisors and you started to outline all of those pieces. Now, the next thing is you're going to need to go through and actually start to build a plan on how do I execute this? What is the time it's going to take? How long does it take for any of these things to happen? How to get an EIN, an employer identification number? How long does it take to, start all of these pieces? But when you do that, you're going to have to start building your actual execution plan of when you're going to implement it. The third step was finding your team and asking lots of questions, building out your business plan. The fourth step is then actually, how do we know what's our timeline so that we're actually going to implement it? And then lastly, the fifth step, and this is one of the simple ones, but it's so critical, and most people skip it, is actually building a schedule. Build a full plan on how your first 6 months are going to look. If you're coming from a business environment where you work for somebody and you're going to go work by yourself, you're going to have to create some new habits. There's a bunch of discipline you're going to have to set. So setting your own schedule, setting what is the work environment, how do we create those parameters? How do we establish boundaries between home and work if you're working from home? How do you do those things so that you have that plan? But when you have all these plans, the reality is you're going to come up with it's a no-brainer, man. I got to jump. There's money here all over the place. I'm going to work less. I'm going to be accountable for myself, but I'm going to have a lot of flexibility. And we talk about that, and actually talk about that in my newest book, Life on Your Terms. So if you found value in this, please subscribe to this channel, share it with somebody else. Thank you very, very much for investing the time and energy today. And if you have questions, please reach out, aspiringsolopreneur.com. Keep smiling.